Awesome. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Aries Davis, and I am the Executive Advisory Council board member amongst several others. I am very excited to have everyone join us today. We have on the call individuals from around the city of Chicago, I would assume, and beyond. So we'll start off with a few polling questions, but before we do that, I want to level set our conversation. We are here today to talk about starting the conversation, mental health first aid amidst the COVID-19 situation. So I think this will definitely be a lively conversation. For those who just joined, I mentioned that we will have polling throughout the session. We will have questions and answers. A few of you have already typed in the chat box, so use that as your means for answering and asking questions. I will, at this time, go ahead and turn it over to Roderick to share a little bit about NAAAHR. I'll start off the session with introductions of our speakers, myself and Dr. Raj, and then we'll wrap with resources for NAAAHR Chicago chapter. All right, Roderick.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roderick Nelson. I am the president of the Chicago chapter of NAAAHR, and I'm so elated to have everyone on the call today. And I just wanted to give a short and brief background around NAAAHR. So we started in 1997, 98 to make sure that they had a coalition. Well, first of all, start off from a coalition of different African-American groups all over the United States. And we met together in Washington, D.C. to make sure we had a national umbrella over the coalitions, and we formed into one group called the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources. Moving forward, we have about 25 to 30 chapters across the United States, specifically one here in the Chicago chapter. Moving forward, what we want to do is make sure that all of our members and non-members have a place to go to for resources and networking and learning and development, and share that among the masses. And we have a great group of professionals that lead our team. So I just wanted to just say that to our team and introduce those who are on the call now, if I can do that. So let's just start with our VP of membership, which is Eric. We also have our VP, Eric Horn. We also have our VP of programming, which is Jasmine Guy.
Hi,
we also have a VP. Hi. Eric, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
And our VP of communications, Jason Wright. Okay. And our secretary. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. So our secretary is McCoy Fair.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, great. So, and we have also a treasurer, and our treasurer is Michelle Brewer. So moving forward, we want to make sure that if you have any questions directed to Chicago chapter, you definitely can go to our info in AAAHR.org. Eric, do you want to go over the national goals and the chapter goals? Or you want me to start there or in there?
Well, I think at this point, Roderick, if you can maybe share a little bit about some of our projections for 2020, some of our goals, any insight that you think the audience would like to know, especially around membership, et cetera.
Okay, great. So our four main chapter goals is to really improve engagement amongst NAAAHR Chicago and make sure there's a visibility in all of our programming and communications. So we're going to branch out to our social media in LinkedIn and also our social media with Instagram. So watch out for those, and we'll make sure to communicate those online to you guys. Also to develop relationships with our external companies and organizations. So at this point, we're trying to connect with external companies, non-for-profit and corporate, to make sure that we can bring our benefits to them in exchange to really get our numbers started with investments into our chapter as well. So our external partnership will be moving forward with that. The number 3 thing is really research trending and making sure that we have an opportunity to understand the trends in HR. So our VP of programming will be moving forward with understanding the trends and providing programming on a monthly basis. But we do have a program that we're trying to make sure that we have more leadership programming going on, and also making sure that we have for our 3 main sectors. So our 3 main sectors will be executive engagement, emerging leaders, and also HR beginners. So those are 3 areas that we're going to offer programming in. And then Jasmine can probably tell you more about those as she ends the call today. And last but not least, we want to make sure that we connect with everyone. So moving forward, I am going to have a couple of communications out for this month and next month to make sure that you know where we stand on the coronavirus and what we're doing as HR leaders to make sure we're leading that charge. So I'm going to end there at this point.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Roderick. So for those that are not on mute, just a few housekeeping items. If you can place your phone on mute, there is some background noise. Everyone, for the most part, should be on mute at this point. But if you are not, and if you are one of our NAAAHR HR board members, just go ahead and put your phones on mute until we start. So Jasmine, I'll turn it over to you to kick off the poll question.
Sure. And just before we start with the poll questions, again, thank you everyone for your participation. My name is Jasmine Guy. I am your VP of Programming. Throughout today's program, we ask that if you do have questions, please include them in the chat box. And when appropriate, we will go ahead and intersect your questions or responses in today's program, and then we'll also do Q&A at the end to make sure that this is engaging and meaningful for you. So the first poll question is, what is your job experience level, and are you a member of NAAAHR? So we're trying to get a sense of who is on the call today, so we're able to then tailor the content for you today. So if you could go ahead and answer that poll question, that would be really great. And I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll right now.
Thank you.
Come on, don't be shy. All right, I'm starting to get responses. So it looks like we have a lot of mid-manager, director level individuals so far that are responding. But at the same time, we do have some executive C-suite level individuals as well as some entry level, but the majority of the people on today's program are mid-managers. I'm going to allow 2 more seconds for participation, and then I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And in terms of who's on the call, whether or not they're proud members of NAAAHR or not, actually, the majority of you are actually not proud members yet. And so I hope that you enjoyed today's programming and that you see that we do provide value to our membership and that we are a learn, share environment. And it's because of membership that we're able to bring about wonderful programs like this. And so we will talk to you later about how you can actually join and take part of this learn, share environment. So now that I've ended the poll, it appears that we have 67% of the individuals on today's call that are mid-managers and directors. So welcome to you all. Thank you all for joining us. And then tied both at 17%, we have our executive C-suite leaders. Thank you so much for joining us on today's call, as well as 17% of entry level and college students. So now that we have a sense of who is on the call, we know now how to then tailor today's conversation.
Perfect. So thank you, Jasmine. We, at this point, will kick off our session. We are very, very excited to have amongst us a preeminent medical doctor by the name of Raj Shah. I'll start off with a little bit of an introduction of how he and I met. Through my work at Dominican University, I had the opportunity to participate in a mental health first aid certification, and I was encouraged to actually take that course at Rush Medical University here in Chicago. And during that particular session, I had the pleasure of having Professor Dr. Raj as my facilitator. It was an all-day session, and I am very positive that he will share out, once we get to that stage, a little bit about his background. But I just wanted to take that moment to acknowledge him and thank him for supporting NAAAHR and supporting the work that we're doing around this very germane and very timely topic. So my name, again, for those who don't know, is Dr. Aries Davis. I am a member, board member, as well as a lifetime member. So I'll convince some of you guys on the line to maybe join as lifetime members of NAAAHR Chicago chapter. I am also a past Chicago president of the chapter. Currently, I work as an executive in residence and also an adjunct professor for Dominican University. I have passion projects with my own business, which focuses on workforce readiness merged with emotional intelligence, and that firm is actually called Workforce EQI. Please follow me on any of my social media platforms as well as LinkedIn. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Raj just to introduce himself, and then I'll continue with the rest of the session. Dr. Raj?
Great. Thank you so much, Aries, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm so glad to have the invite to be here with you today for the next hour and a half. I really appreciate this opportunity to share some of the work we've been doing to try to encourage better understanding of youth mental health first aid, and look forward to the further discussions and conversations we'll be having.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So going right into our session, a couple of things to point out about this conversation. This is going to be your time. So we're clearly in a situation now that is timely, and unfortunately is not something that any of us thought would be our reality, but it is. And so I think a part of our start is to make sure that we emphasize mental health being about wellness, and how do we ensure that there is a level of wellness amongst our individuals that are in the workforce. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And so I believe in making sure that conversations are, again, very lively and forward thinking, in the sense that I would like for everyone to participate. So there's another question that should be on your screen. Over to the right, again, there's a chat box. I want you to really just think about, what are you grateful for today? I'll start. I would say that I'm grateful for the ability to wake up. I'm grateful for the ability to have my family and friends that are on the line. I even think my dad is on the line, Clinton. So I'm very grateful to have family and friends in my life. So just go ahead in the chat box, note, what are you grateful for today? Just take a couple of seconds just to really think about that. What are you grateful for today? So we hear health, stability, education, great. The opportunity to be with us, thank you for saying that. Employment, family, friends. Let's maybe get just a couple of more, just the partner. Awesome, family, friends, loved ones, life, general. So we see that there's a lot for us to be grateful for. One note is here today, just to tell you the work that we do as practitioners, albeit if you're in education, if you are in human resources, whatever it is your area of specialization, we have a lot that's on our plate. So just this afternoon, I had someone to reach out to me, and they said that they could not attend the session simply because they were in the midst of making some talent transitions, essentially downsizing a lot of the individuals from their team. So imagine having to go through that moment of addressing an issue that is a very uncomfortable issue, right? An issue that is not necessarily the state that we want to be in, but it's the reality. And you have to really kind of put on a happy face, if you will. How do you go about doing that and still stay in the moment of gratitude? The reality is the workforce is shifting. And even if we don't necessarily know what that shift will mean, we know that what we're seeing is that everyone is shifting with the necessity towards remote work. And that essentially means that you're working from home. The fortunate part about my professional background is that I've spent probably about, I would say 70% of my entire career working remotely. I would say that I was an early adopter of this type of process. When I started off with Monster, we had a team of individuals where we literally worked from our homes, did not see each other, but maybe once a year. And we spent a lot of time doing our work one-on-one with our clients, et cetera. So I know that this is not the new norm for many of you. While it's something that I've personally experienced, it may not be your norm. So just recently, a survey from the law firm of Seyfarth and Shaw just noted that 67% of the employers are moving more towards a work from home structure, especially again in our current state. Now keep in mind that this was March 12th through the 16th. Imagine how that number has shifted and changed just within a matter of a couple of weeks. I would say that that number, 9 times out of 10, will be significantly higher than what it is that we see in the statistics that's listed. So here's some things that I would say are the biggest struggles with working remotely. Unplugging, some of the distractions at home. I had another call with a client. She works in cybersecurity, and she just had a baby, a newborn. And in the midst of us having that conversation, you heard some of the baby speaking in the background. You had her husband in another section of the house. So there's a lot of movement and distractions and activities that are happening that we're not necessarily accustomed to. So one area that we don't talk about, though, that is a big factor in us being remote is loneliness. And this may not be a shock to many of us, but I think it's important to mention that when we're in these situations of remote work, sometimes it can be lonely. Sometimes it can be uncertain. Sometimes there's a lot of distractions, all the things that make it challenging at times. So this is a little bit of a funny kickoff, but in the midst of, and this is my own personal quote, but I always say, in the midst of crises comes creativity. So there's power in the term joy, right? So we have to kind of take a moment to find the funny in our moments, to find the joy, to find the gratitude. Essentially, by refocusing our mental thoughts towards that humor or that joy, we can actually move our thought process from the negative to more of the positive or the moments of gratitude. I'll start off with another chat box. So tell me in a couple of words or so, what gives you joy? What gratifies you? What makes you happy? Let's see, what do we have? Giving back. Unplugging. Laughing. I actually had a video of a baby laughing on here, but I won't do that to you guys right now. But that's one of the things that makes me laugh. Music, talking with friends and family, catching up with friends, service. That's a really big important part of our day. Just loving on everyone, helping the homeless, ministry, growth, music. Sometimes a little cocktail helps as well. Spending time with family, interacting with family and friends, resting. Think about that. That's an important factor right now. When we are working from home, one thing that we don't necessarily understand is that we have a habit of working a lot longer than the normal 9 to 5 or traditional time that we're in an office. And what we have to do as working professionals is take some time to relieve that stress, right, Portia? Take some time to think about some of those accomplishments or tasks. I have a document that I'll share out with everyone after this session that was actually given to me just today from one of my USC alumni, and it actually has a list of ideas that we can take upon ourselves during this time. It goes from writing a book, which is something that I have forthcoming. It is something as simple as walking outside. A very close partner of mine says, sometimes we just have to unplug. We have to take some time to really unplug. So think about, how are you unplugging? There's also power in balance, right? So think about this, and this is the nerdy doctor in me, but I often think about research and statistics around our emotions. So again, a part of one of the businesses that I have, Workforce EQI, talks about emotional intelligence in the workforce and how do we control the emotions of others and ourselves. So there are neurons that are actually in our body that control the positive and also the negative aspects of our emotions. So what are you doing to balance that amongst the positive and the negative? What does that mean? It is something that is sometimes a struggle for many of us. And so I think we need to start with a moment of practice. So this is a little unorthodox for a session, but I would like for us to do something a little bit different. I want everyone to sit up in your chairs or whatever position that you're in. So if you're laying on the bed, sit up, sit on the side of your bed, sit up in your chair, sit in a comfortable position. And I want you to just simply place your hands on your knees with your back upright. I want you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you don't, no worries. But I want you to think about the placement of your fingers as you put your hands on your knees. Are your hands really clutched? Are they really tight? If they are, loosen your hands. What about your shoulders? Are your shoulders really tight? Go ahead and loosen your shoulders and sit in a comfortable state where you can breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And then if you do have your eyes closed, I want you to do something that helps me. I want you to really just take a snapshot, take a picture, if you will, a mental picture of what your body feels like in this moment. Clear out the bowl, clear out any and everything that is in your mind, those negative neurons that we talked about, and replace them with positive thoughts. So for example, clear out the thoughts of uncertainty, discomfort, fear, anxiety. Replace those thoughts with abundance, joy, music, gratitude, a lot of the terms that you mentioned earlier in our session. So practice mindfulness, meditation, really kind of taking a moment for self-reflection. And thank you for obliging me with that exercise for those who participated. All right. So our final poll question before I turn it over to Dr. Raj is, what positive words will you now use to fill in your mind space? What words will you use to replace those negative neurons with positive neurons? So go ahead in the chat box at the top. Type in, what words will you use to replace those negative neurons with positive neurons or positive thoughts? Success, gratitude, that's my favorite. I often say gratitude quite a bit. Peace. I'll tell you guys one situation that I was in. A good friend of mine, I was in the midst of really kind of developing myself professionally, physically, spiritually, etc. And this person told me, she said, Aries, you look as if you're at peace. And quite frankly, no matter the physical aesthetics or any other professional growth that I may have obtained, I would say the biggest compliment that I ever received from anyone was the fact that they told me that I looked as if I was at peace. Strength, compassion, growth. the love, joy, balance, smiling, just simply smiling. How many times do we pay attention to the fact that we may or may not smile in our day? So take some time to actually just smile, just laugh. All right, so I'll pause right there. Again, we'll have questions embedded throughout the session, but if there are any questions that you have at this moment, go ahead and place them into the chat box. Makoya will be funneling some of those questions, and we will ensure to answer them throughout the session. So if you have any questions at this point, if it's related to any of the materials that we just discussed now, or anything that Dr. Raj will share in the next couple of slides, please go ahead and place them in the chat box. All right.
Okay, so we have one question saying, what other mindful tips can you recommend practicing throughout the day?
I think that's a great question. One other mindfulness tip that I would suggest is reading affirmations and reciting them aloud. I often say that there's power in the words that we speak, not just the words that we think, but also the words that we speak. So I keep by my bedside a number of affirmation books and positive speaking words and the like. And I often refer to them when I am in situations of emptying that bowl, when I need to take some of that negative energy out. So I'll go back and I'll say, and I may say to myself just daily, I am good enough, I am smart, I am competent, I am grateful, I am at peace. So whatever it is your mantra, and some people call it mantras. I also have at the end of the session, and maybe actually the next slide, a number of, it's actually coming up, but I'll start here. There are a number of meditation self-guided sessions. How many of you have heard of Deepak Chopra? And there's a 21-day meditation series that happens that's free. So that's one other resource. And then in the next couple of slides, I'll share out one that I just recently started with Yale University. So there are a number of free resources and also online resources to help support you with meditation and mindfulness. Here's another great segue into that question, the power of balance. So when we quiet our mind, it's important to note that our soul will speak to us, our heart will speak to us. So here's something that I often practice. I ask the question, where are you? And most of my coaching individuals will say, here. I say, where do you want to be? They say, now. So that's another mantra that you can practice. Where are you? Here. Where do you want to be? Now. So practice being in the here and now. Ask yourself questions about your current state. What sensations do you notice about your body when you feel as if you are going through moments of distress or anxiety? I will go sometimes when I work from home an entire day without opening my shades. And I wonder why I feel not as energetic or not as excited about the work that I'm doing. So as simple as opening your shades, opening your blinds. During that time of lunch, as we are working remotely, some of us work straight through lunch. Now, everyone should have some lunch right now because this is the lunch hour. But a lot of times we may not take that time to eat, to nourish our minds, to drink some water in the midst of our day. So think about the light that we're bringing in, the light from the outside and the light that's around us. Be present with your surroundings. Try to maybe take some time to listen to that music. I heard a couple of people mention that. Move your body. If it just literally means standing up and sitting down a couple of times. Think about the way that you are showing up. Are you showing up in a positive light? Are you thinking about negativity all the time? Think about what are those triggers. Also, another really, really important note, and I am guilty of doing this, but I have made a very conscious effort of not doing it as often as I like, but do not work from your bed. So anything that you are exposed to is what your mind triggers. So if you are sitting in the bed, it triggers sleep. If you are looking at an image that is not necessarily positive, it triggers negativity. And that means if you're watching TV and you're trying to work, it triggers emotions of whatever you're watching on TV. So I often just turn off everything. I shut down completely. So I think we had a couple of resources that I wanted to share on the next couple of slides. So the researcher in me believes in books and online tools. So I will make sure that all of this information is available to you after this session. But if we do not have any other questions, and I
was going to say we do have a couple others.
Okay, go for it.
So another one is, how do you set your daily intentions?
By being very intentional about setting your daily intentions. And what I mean by that is keep a pen and paper by your bed. I'll show you guys, I keep a journal with me all the time. It's evident by what you see in front of you. So keep that pen and paper by you. Use your phone if you have to, put some notes in the notes section, but write out your expectations for the day. I prioritize my day with an ABC. A's are must-haves, and I'll even plug in taking time to walk is an A. Taking time to take my probiotics or whatever it is my A. Taking time to read, that's my A. Taking time to finish up a project that I set. If I can turn the camera around, which I won't at this point, but I started a project of reorganizing my room and my office area, and it is right now it is quite interesting in the sense that there's stuff everywhere, but I call it organized chaos because I've started the process of organizing it. So the answer to that question is write it down and materialize it by going through it on a daily basis and prioritize it A, B, C. And if you don't get to the C's, that's okay, but at least try to capture at least a couple of those A's that you've highlighted.
And then we have another question. How do you shut down your mind to go to sleep?
That's a really good one as well. There's something called, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's melatonin that happens when we, again, let in light during the dark. So I may be misspeaking about the exact use of that term, but there's a couple of tools that I use. One, I turn off the TV. I make sure that the room that I'm in is as dark as possible because it evokes sleep. I also, if I'm really feeling like I can't sleep, I take what's called Calm, CALM. It's a over-the-counter nutrient that helps to support with the melatonin, and it helps to support to center and clear your mind. Going back to the meditation piece, a lot of times I'll literally just meditate myself to sleep because that is also quieting your mind, and it allows your mind to be at peace and be at ease. So those are some best practices that I invoke on a daily basis. I'll actually be very curious to hear from the participants. Tell me a little bit about what you do on a consistent basis to quiet your mind or to block out the noise. Just go ahead and type in the chat box. Any other suggestions that you would recommend? Read, drink tea. I do that a lot as well. Hi, Amelia. Amelia is the National Association of Black MBAs, National Black MBA Association, excuse me. And she's the president, so we're very happy to have her on board today. Put down the electronics, right? That is probably the biggest distraction that we inadvertently do. And again, I'm very guilty of doing this, and I've been very intentional about not doing it. Before you go to bed, whatever you put in your mind is what you receive. So if before I go to bed, I'm thinking about what I have to do the night before, it essentially distracts me from going to bed, and that constantly plays in my mind. Journaling. Great idea, Dr. Raj. Listen to soft music. Awesome. So these are great ways to start to quiet and center our minds, especially at work, especially as we go to bed, especially as we begin our day. So I want to encourage you to follow us on NAAAHR Chicago for any of the information that you see. I am also going to make sure that it is available to you. We have some other tools and resources that Dr. Raj will also share, but we'll make sure that everyone has access to at least the resources that are shown in the screen. All right, so without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Shah, and we appreciate your time and consideration for the comments that you've shared with our first half of our session. But Dr. Shah, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Aries, and thanks for the wonderful presentation and sort of setting up our needs to all have well-being, especially the combination of not only physical well-being but mental well-being to achieve our optimal capabilities and find who we are. So I thought I'd start by just telling you a little bit about me and then why I got interested in the idea about mental health first aid, and then we'll work through some of the ideas and concepts around mental health first aid and try to make it interactive. So I was actually born in East Africa in Tanzania, and I moved to the United States so when I was 6 years old, and lived most of my early adulthood in Bolingbrook, Illinois, on the southwest suburbs here in Chicago. And after graduating from high school, I went to Northwestern for chemical engineering and worked for a company called Nalco Chemical for a while I was training to be an engineer. And I found I really enjoyed working with people one-on-one and dealing with their health issues, and was lucky enough to get accepted at the University of Illinois at Chicago for my medical school. And while I was there, I pretty much liked everything in medical school, but I found I wanted to help people throughout their lifespan, from babies being born to taking care of older adults and everything in between. So I applied for a residency in family medicine at West Suburban in Oak Park. And after that, I found I really enjoyed working with older adults because I could see how older adults played a big role in influencing how people approached health multi-generationally. So I went back to Rush in 2000 to do my geriatrics fellowship. And since then, almost 20 years, I've been at Rush and working at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center, where I kind of help with evaluations of memory loss with a team approach, and also work on clinical trials to look for new treatments and other options for older adults so that they can maintain their well-being over time. About 5 years ago, though, based on my experience and the diversity and the community that we have in the Chicago region, it became clear that we had to just continue to do work to make sure not only that each person has the opportunity to live longer and live without disability, but that we make sure that option is available for all residents living in the Chicago area, and everybody can have the optimal capabilities of reaching that goal. And that's why I started working as a Center for Community Health Equity leader. It's a program that's run between Rush and DePaul University, and supporting our understanding of health equity needs in our communities, and then finding solutions, working with faculty, students, and communities from multiple areas. One of our first projects with the Center for Community Health Equity was to work on the Community Health Needs Assessment of Rush University Medical Center, and thinking about the catchment area of the 400,000, 450,000 individuals on the west side, where we are an anchor institution, and how do we better improve the large gap in life expectancy that was happening. And a very good example of that is if you take the blue line and you got off at the stop at where Rush is at the medical center, the life expectancy in the communities around Rush is about 79. But if you go 2 stops down and you stop off at Kedzie in Garfield Park, the life expectancy goes to about 69. And then if you keep going on the blue line and stop at Oak Park, the life expectancy goes up to about 81. So within like 3 miles, 4 miles of the city, you see the wide range of potential outcomes of people's health and well-being. So when we were doing that community health needs assessment and talking with community members, one of the clearest messages that was coming out was the need for better mental health services and access. And it wasn't